Good afternoon, everyone. Let's try that again. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. My name is Shrey Jethwani, and I am honored and excited to serve as the National Political Director of Dream Defenders. Squad. In my role, I am responsible for leading the efforts to engage our membership in policy development, voter registration, and political education. My experience includes grassroots Florida Springs activism, organizing at Equality Florida, providing political analysis at Mango the Podcast, and serving as the political compliance manager at the Sunrise Movement. Currently, I am leading in various trans organizing spaces, prioritizing the material conditions of LGBTQIA BIPOC youth across Florida and the country. I hail from the horse capital of the world, Ocala, Florida, and currently call Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn home, where in my personal life I am also a DJ and queer nightlife socialite.
Yes, not a socialite. I love it.
I am honored to welcome you to our panel, Freedom Needs Fighters, a Black New Deal for all of us. I'm so excited to introduce our panelists today, beginning with the co-executive director of Dream Defenders, Naila Summers-Polite. A strategist, communicator, and co-founding member of the Dream Defenders, Naila's journey into activism was ignited by the extrajudicial murder of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin in 2012. That sparked her deep commitment to justice, which led her to help establish the Dream Defenders. Yes,
Hi,
please.
everybody. Good afternoon. Lovely to see you all.
I'm super excited to introduce State Representative Angie Nixon, who serves Florida's 13th State House District in Duval County. A native of Jacksonville, the Rep is a fellow Gator and graduated from the University of Florida. Rep Nixon has turned her love for the community into an over 10-year career as a community organizer and most recently opened Cafe Resistance, the bookstore and coffee shop in Jacksonville. Come on, Felix is a writer, organizer, and seasoned political communication strategist who works to elevate the connections between arts, culture, and politics. Her essays and poetry have been featured in Vanity Fair, New York Magazine, The Atlantic, and more. She served as the Executive Vice President of Communications at Blue State and Director of Strategic Communications for the Elizabeth Warren presidential campaign. Today, she serves as the Assistant Professor of Creative Writing at the New School. And of course, I am so excited to introduce Delaney Vandergriff, who is an award-winning social impact strategist and cultural worker. Most recently, she worked for Viacom and Paramount Media Networks as a manager of social impact. Prior to that, Delaney was an organizer in her home state of North Carolina, where she co-founded and is a current steering committee member of Refund Raleigh, an organization fighting to end police violence and economic exploitation. Friends, this week we have been fortunate to hear countless perspectives and make connections across caucuses and sectors as we move to rapidly organize to take on the fascism we are at war with. The pundits will tell you that neoliberalism and political alliance and affiliations sit on a bell curve. That political ideology follows basic arithmetic, and it's on its most rudimentary level, they're right. On most issues, the average person sits with what the majority of people want on the left, in the center of the bell curve, to the middle of the left of the American political lanes. But when the end zones on the field are authoritarian fascism and democracy, most people don't want someone halfway. Most people actually firmly stand rooted in their belief that this country should be a free democratic nation, and those invested in a white Christian nationalist ethno-state are firmly rooted in their own camp. Running to the middle is abandoning your constituency. In Brazil, in India, in Mexico, the UK, and most recently in France, we have seen the power of a united left front. An organizing formation with tentative alliances and uneasy partnerships with various factions from the center left emerged in each of those elections to repel the right wing. But it is critical to note the importance of the transformations these alliances forged to get the job done. In France, the new Popular Front is guaranteeing a minimum wage increase, price freezes on essentials and energy bills, and is issuing increased housing building permits in their first 15 days in office. They campaigned on lowering the retirement age, and their priority legislative packages go over purchasing power, education, healthcare, ecological planning, and most specifically, abolition of billionaire privileges. Where have we heard this all before in our united front, if not the left? We know that when confronted with fascism, neoliberalism fails time and time again. Working class and poor, black and brown led, leftward progress rooted in our shared values of black feminism, abolition, and gender liberation is the only way forward.
Period.
And yes, it was not perfect in any of those aforementioned countries or alliances. It didn't just happen because of the alliance or just because of power or promising transformation. There were luck and miracles too. We have long known the need to work hard to build power and create transformation through policy, culture, and community, and stand firmly rooted in the face of opposition with power, transformation, and miracles. So I ask to the panel, and I'm going to start off with Naila. Fascism is responding to us. 12 years ago, Dream Defenders began as an uprising against the extrajudicial killing of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. The organization started as an action and has grown to become a Spartan organizing outfit in the streets and the halls of power. So how are we, as Dream Defenders and broadly as the movement, ready to meet the current moment in a way that reflects our growth and the direction we've set for our movement?
Thank you, Shrey. What a way to get us started, grounding us in the current moment and what we're currently dealing with. But yeah, Dream Defenders, we started as an action. Trayvon Martin was killed in February of 2012, and there was a series of conference calls of a bunch of young college students who wanted to do something about Dream Defenders. I was one of those college students. I was at the University of Florida in Gainesville, and I was pissed. I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted something to do. And so I got on what was one conference call that became 2 and 3 and 4. And the action that we ended up taking and planning together was a march from Bethune-Cookman's campus in Daytona, Florida, to Sanford, Florida, where Trayvon had been killed by George Zimmerman. And that was our inaugural action. We marched over Easter weekend for 3 days. And when we got to Sanford, we blocked the doors of the police station and demanded the arrest of George Zimmerman. And, you know, I think that in itself tells you where we were at as a movement, right? We're asking for an arrest of people. We are now an abolitionist organization. We're now a socialist organization. And the thing that I will say is we are always and have always been in search of the answer. What is going to be the ticket? There is no one ticket, obviously, but what is going to be the thing? What is at the root of what is happening to us, and how do we get to it? So when Trayvon Martin gets killed, we do an action. Zimmerman gets arrested 3 days after we did that. Okay, so maybe we have something here, right? Let's become an organization. Why did Trayvon happen? Trayvon was in Sanford because he had been suspended for having a baggie of weed, right? It's the school to prison pipeline that put him out of his home and sends him to Sanford. So that's what we'll do. We'll start getting involved in superintendent races. We'll start demanding cops out of schools. We're going to go for school to prison pipeline. Then we realize, well, it's not just kids that are being criminalized. It's adults too. So here comes abolition in Dream Defenders' journey, right? Actually, it's not just the children, it's all of us. We are being criminalized wholesale. It's the prison industrial complex. So then we start talking about what do police-free zones look like? And we were talking about that in, before a lot of people were talking about that. We were doing free zones, declaring maroon spaces, saying we don't want any police here. Police are actually a problem, so we're prisons, they're locking us up. But our people are still broke, even if you take them out of jails, even if you stop arresting us, our people are impoverished, and very much on purpose. So, oh shit, it's capitalism. It's capitalism, right? So we have been on a journey trying to get at the root of the problem for the last 11 years. And we're not the first, we're not the last, but that has been the journey that we're at. And right now we are looking into how do we act? Now that we know it's capitalism, now that we know what's afflicting our people, because remember, we were college students learning everything about the world together and building an organization at the same time. So now we're in solutions phase. We have the Freedom Papers, which is a vision for the world that we created in our organization. Yep, I'm about to wrap it up. Yep. Freedom Papers, we put that out in 2018. It was a joint effort in our organization with all of our membership to write a vision for the future, because it's one thing to fight against a bunch of shit that's killing us, but what are we fighting for? So that's where we're at. And Shrey mentioned our Black New Deal, Freedom Needs Fighters Black New Deal. That is the next phase of the Dream Defenders organization. We're going to fight for something. We're going to fight for legislation. We have to have a North Star that we are pushing towards, or, yeah. All right.
Period. I'm gonna ask Delaney as well to speak to this and like where we are in the movement, because you've also been a member of Dream Defenders.
Yeah. Love Dream Defenders. I always talk about how I was a fan before I was a member. I was a fangirl of Dream Defenders. It was like my organizing dream. And so to sit up here on a panel thinking about little 18-year-old me after like 2 years after Dream Defenders started, it's just nuts to be here. So shout out to Dream Defenders. Naila mentioned the Freedom Papers, and I want to read them off because there's something for everybody there. Freedom to be, freedom from war, violence, and environmental destruction, freedom of movement, a free and flourishing democracy, freedom of mind, freedom from poverty, and freedom from prisons and police. There's something for every single person to grab onto in this vision, in this building of a new world. And I think that that is what separates Dream Defenders from other organizations. There is something, freedom of movement. Do we want to do local campaigns so that folks can travel for free in their communities so that they can get to work, right? Freedom of mind. We have folks that are fighting in Florida around banned books and education. Freedom from prisons and police. There's abolitionist campaigns everywhere across the country and everywhere across the globe. There's something for everybody. Freedom from war, violence, and environmental destruction. That's Palestine, right? That's Palestine. So there's something for everybody to get involved with. And so Dream Defenders has a North Star and has had a North Star. And so I think we are well on our way to continue to go towards that North Star with the Black New Deal. And I'm really proud of Dream Defenders as an organization and what we've been able to do thus far and will continue to do.
Continuing down just to Rep. Nixon, you have over the course of this past... Is this... Hello? Thank you. All right, moving on down to Rep. Nixon. You have over the course of this past 12 years, alongside the timeline of Dream Defenders, shifted from, not just being an organizer and activist, but also leading political formations, choreographing political strategy, and also simultaneously serving the constituencies. Mm-hmm. So how do you feel that the last 12 years have taught us, and how do you feel that the moment is prepared to move forward?
Yeah, for sure. So you made me feel a little old. Just so I would say you are right. Fascism is responding to us. It's very evident. I mean, after the majority peaceful protest that took place in 2020 due to the unjust execution of George Floyd, right? Like, we saw massive policy changes all across the country. But in Florida, what did we see right after that? We saw the implementation of Hate Bill 1, HB 1, the anti-protest bill. And so what it shows is that, like, we have to move towards alignment with all of our groups, right? Like, we have to come together and work together, and we can't continually do things in silos because they really seek to divide and conquer. And then when we're working together in alignment collectively, right? We got to go to the community because, you know, you all so eloquently talked about North Stars, but our community don't even know what a North Star is.
Okay.
Right? They are like struggling to put food on their table. They have no idea that they are living in oppression. They think it is the norm. And so it is up to us to go to them and educate them, to let them know that they deserve better. Like, they honestly don't know they deserve better. And so, like, that's where we are right now. It's gonna take us going back to our deep roots, back in the day, right? Like, when we saw that our children were going to school hungry, when the Black Panther implemented the free breakfast, the free breakfast program, right? When we saw that there were no medical programs within our communities, because right now they're pulling out, especially in the state of Florida, they're pulling out in the state of Florida, right? Because doctors are afraid to go to jail, right? And so, like, we have to start those programs. We have to come together because they're going to continually attack us. But that's what we're doing, right? Like, we are resilient people. I hate that we have to be resilient, but like, we have to continually and do it in alignment. And so I see that across the board. I know Dream Defenders is really instrumental in that. They work with us. They're on our board. I am also an executive director of a statewide alignment group called Florida for All that's comprised of 6 statewide organizations that are doing a damn thing, right? And it's hard work to be in alignment, right? Like, you constantly gotta agitate and like work together on a thing and like try to do it well and all the things, but like, that's what we have to do. We have to come together because they're gonna continually seek to divide and conquer us. And when we come together, we can actually flourish.
And, you know, speaking of siloing and cross-education, cross-pollination, right, like moving things along, I feel like you want to speak to maybe like the social power and creative, you know, element of the last decade and how we've arrived at where we are and where we're going.
So what I have always found really interesting and curious about all of our movements over the last 100 years is that there's always been an element of the arts, right? The arts is always a participant in moving our movements along. And what I've noticed is that in terms of thinking about silos, we've kind of isolated the artists in the movement, right? We understand them as something or someone that is there to elevate advocacy, right? Versus to actually become a part of it. And when we create movement spaces and spaces for advocacy, we often don't invite artists and culture workers into those spaces, right? We believe that they have their own spaces, they're supposed to organize in those spaces, but really there needs to be a space made for the community to invest in arts and culture and for arts and culture to reinvest in our communities. And part of what excites me about this moment is understanding that artists are being held to a totally different standard than the standard that they were held to 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We're actually asking artists and people who capitalize on the excitement of our communities, the excitement in our communities, to be accountable to the movements that they're making, to what they require from our communities, right? So obviously we all love Beyonce, or rather love Beyonce's music, because we don't idolize anybody, right? But we all love Beyonce's music. But at the same time, when we think about the way that she is engaging in nationalism, right, with the last photos of the last album that she put out, there's room there to ask the question of, why are we so invested in nationalism? How can our arts and culture spaces actually divest from nationalism, right? And I think that we should all be a part of that conversation of how we can hold artists and arts communities accountable and bring them into our spaces.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Yes, yes. I wrote down a little bit about arts and culture. As a cultural worker, I think about that all the time. And I was having a conversation about movement in North Carolina, and ultimately, political organizing and cultural and arts organizing are not different things. Right. arts and cultural organizing is an integral part to how we organize our communities because art and culture is integral to our communities. We have to have it. Why do people stay and travel to the New Yorks, the LAs, the Chicagos, the Baltimores, the DCs, the Miamis? It's not because people are just, want to look outside and look at the building. They're there because of the culture that was created because the conditions at a time were ripe for artists to stay and create. And culture makes policy and politics possible. Yes. If we don't have the right culture and we don't make the cultural shifts in the way that we speak, then policy and politics, it can't happen. There's nothing there. There's no meat. There's no warmth. There's no soul. There's nothing. I think about in the 20s and 30s and 50s and 60s, I think about the ways that Miles Davis, Sonny Rollins, Thelonious Monk, shout out to North Carolina, D'Angelo Now, Robert Glasper, Aja Monet, a poet. These are folks that are living in a legacy of movement, arts and politics. This isn't new, but it is something I agree that we have to invest in a different way. I just think it's so important. So thank you for raising that.
I'm curious for the panel. Across the board, we've been talking about a lot of returns, right? Returns to schools of organizing that we've known about, returns to practices, returns to teaching our people our practices that we have to continue, right? And so I'm just curious as far as as one political school begins to sunset and there needs to be a transition of torch of leadership, but not an abandonment, then there's still the connection of mentorship. How do you guys see the transition into this new era of politics also demanding a new era of organizing and organizing school? And feel free to jump in.
I think that we sometimes forget that we are in an intergenerational, international struggle. And part of what is happening in this return is returning to a movement ideal that says we are in community with all oppressed people. Yeah. We are in community with anybody who is working against oppression to improve the conditions that we are organizing within. And ultimately, when we recognize that we are at a moment of change, a shifting moment, it gives us the opportunity as individuals to shift ourselves, right? So the reason why I was so excited to take on this question is because I'm in a return moment, right? I started as an organizer. I started an organization called We Declare Genocide, and I got really frustrated with feeling like we were out in the streets every single day and I wasn't seeing any policy change, which is the reason why I went into electoral politics, right? I was like, well, I need to answer this question. What does change look like and how does policy actually play into that conversation? And it took 10 years of walking through electoral spaces, candidate after candidate after candidate, to realize, the electoral system is an apparatus of the state.
Hey.
And the only way that we can actually move through the state is to do that with community, in community, with organizing, right? And so my return has been beautiful and fruitful because I'm relearning all these ways of thinking that I abandoned because I thought it wasn't good enough, it wasn't useful enough. I'm writing a book right now where I'm thinking about all these things, and a word that keeps coming to me is Sankofa, right? Return, right? Go back and get it is the direct translation. And when I hear go back and get it, what I think about is go back and get your soul, go back and get your spirit, right? Go back and get what moves you through the world in a way that is generous, accommodating, and honest. I'm really excited to see how we all return back.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Go back and get it, and go back and get our people. We are, to what Angie was saying earlier, we need to be outside talking to our folks. It is a moment where they are being targeted with misinformation, where they're literally taking the lifeblood, sort of the little that we get in schools, right? Because I grew up in Florida. Our public school system didn't teach me much about Black history, but they're taking the little that they did away, right? But they're taking the scraps that we have been given. And they're fighting to take those away. And so it is on us. It is on people who are part of political formations. It's part of the people who are in this work to do advocacy, to not only get more people into this work, to spread more words, to make more organizers, make more communicators. It's on us. We need to go back and get our people. We are losing the little bit of infrastructure that we have. We are losing sort of the lifeblood. And just the last thing I'll say is there was a panel on the first day with Cortland Cox on the panel. Cortland Cox is a Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee veteran. We need to go back and get our elders.
Yes.
Because Dream Defenders, we did not, we were very new. We were filling a gap that wasn't really around, especially in Florida at the time or in the South. We were swaggy young black people that loved hip hop culture, and we were like, we didn't give a shit what the older people had to say about us. But we had elders at our backs advising us at every moment. And we can't forget about, like, we didn't invent nothing new. Like, people already have recipes. People already have some answers, and we've got to keep adapting. We've got to keep learning. But, like, there are some fundamentals that our folks have already that we need to be bringing with us. The world is changing. Organizing methods may change. But at the end of the day, it's relationships, right? That's how we bring people into this work. That's how we create communities that are going to be sustainable and that can thrive under the shit that they're trying to put us under. So yeah, go back and get our people, bring our elders with us. Like, don't forget what we need to be building for what's coming.
Yeah, so I am in total agreement with everything that these dope women just stated. And I was gonna say something about the elders. And like I opened a bookstore, and like Charlie Cobb, his book is in my bookstore. And like I'm trying to get him to come talk to us because he is from Duval County. And then just going back to our roots, like, we can't just be activists either. Like, we gotta organize. Like, there's a difference. There is a stark difference. And to your point, Naila, especially in regards to the youth, love them.
Love them down.
Love them, love their boldness and their, like, I'm gonna do whatever I wanna do attitude. But like, we do have to bring them in and call them in. Because a lot of them, like, we didn't know everything too, so a lot of them don't know things, right? And also just, you know, our elders are struggling too. And so they need to be a part of this as well. And I feel like we can honestly just learn from each other and teach each other other things. And again, get in alignment with each other. I think I'm going to keep saying it today, just like aligning together for the greater good.
I have a lot to say about this one, but I'm gonna keep it brief. I shout out to Cortland Cox and shout out to Snick. I can't talk about Snick and not raise up Ella Baker's name, and not raise up Kwame Ture, and not raise up Gene Wheeler, who are legends and revolutionaries. And I also, being from North Carolina, cannot forget to say something about Shaw University, the mother of Southern HBCUs. So the new generation of organizing and organizers isn't really that new. All of it, again, we're just returning. When we think about arts and culture, we know people were in the jazz clubs back in the day talking about communism, trying to bring people along. So that's just not new. We're here, we're just bringing it back. But in the same rules apply. You have to be, as an organizer, a part of the community, not just somebody who's observing the community, making an assessment, and then trying to tell people what to do. You have to be an active participant in your community. You need to go to the happy hour. You need to go to the cookout. You need to go play pickup basketball. I don't know, go to a book club. But just being an organizer and nothing else, you're not even an organizer, really. Like, you're kind of like, no shade, but it's real though. It's like you have to be rooted in a community, and that's something that I feel like I personally have learned doing national organizing, coming back home and being like, damn, what's going on? And trying to come back and look at what's happening on city council and being like, we should do this. We've got to get in alignment. And people being like, girl, you have been gone. What are you talking about? So yeah, you've got to be like rooted in a thing. Also, I really think that if we can't safely be together and love together and hang out together and gather together in a safe way, then how are we talking to people about abolition? How are we talking to people about public safety if we can't throw a party and people be safe? Those are the easy things. If we can't have a cookout and have everybody understand consent and what it means to be drinking around people and be able to hang out and love one another and be safe. Those are the things that I'm thinking about. I don't really care if people are coming to a city council meeting before we can hang out and laugh together and smoke a little something and be safe. That's where our people are right now. They're wanting to have a good time and an escape from the destruction and the survival of what capitalism has done to them, what the empire has done to them. So there can be organizing rigor. We can have that. We can have a vanguard, but I don't need everybody to be in the vanguard. I need people to be safe so that we can fight for abolition together, so that we can fight for a free world, the world that we deserve, the world our people deserve. So yeah, maybe not door knocking and saying, are you an abolitionist? Right. But maybe door knocking and saying, you want to come to this cookout?
That's right.
There's something that we can do there. And I think that's what young people are trying to move into this new generation of organizing. It doesn't really look that serious to people. It looks like you just trying to play around. But maybe we need to play a little bit so that we can get to the more rigorous and hard stuff.
Come on, Delaney.
I want to ask, Naila has said that if people are tiptoeing, they're fucking losing.
I know that's right.
So I want to ask you, how do we leverage our energy, truth, and momentum to productively build, seize, and reimagine power outside of the framework of white supremacy?
I didn't know the F-bomb was captured in the quotes, but yeah, I mean, I think we know. What is the quote, the Gramsci quote? Like, a new world is dying to be made, and it's a time of monsters. Like, we need light right now, and we don't get light through tiptoeing neoliberal half-ass measures. We don't get the light that we need through, being half-ass about anything. Like, we are in a moment, we are watching, and I know people say this, have said it for many months, we are watching a genocide in real time. Do not piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. This is not a moment for, frankly, a lot of the shit that we're being fed here by the Democratic Party, by the powers that be. It's just not a time to, we're not playing. We haven't been playing for a while, but it's not a time to play right now. And so people are hungry for the right answers. People are not saying building generational wealth is not, that's how we get it out or get out of it. That's not going to cut it. Saying you need to get your good corporate job, that's not going to cut it. Saying you need to be a homeowner, that's not going to cut it for everybody. We can't afford homes. They buying all the homes. So people have been telling us for a really long time, 1 + 1 = 2, but it's not adding up. And so we need to be the people in our work, in our organizations, in our formations, in our circles. We need to be truth tellers. We need to cut through the bullshit, because that is what people are hungry for right now. I turned on MSNBC last night for the first time in many a moon. It was a long time, and they were just, my eyes rolled so far back into my head, I could not believe the kind of shit that they were wasting time talking about. So that's what I mean. Like, you cannot fight something as monstrous as the right, and but capital P Project 25, I know. They've been doing this shit for a long time. But you can't fight these kinds of things with half measures and half stepping and not being real with people about what it takes to fight it back, or, this shit is gonna be work. So yeah, that's what I mean. We have to be workers of truth in this moment and like nothing less.
And then I want to ask, over the course of this week, we've been privileged to hear from Rep. Cori Bush in a panel and at a keynote, and we have seen a pattern of people who are of conscience and standing up for Palestine getting attacked for holding that position publicly, for being a public servant. And so everyone loves to talk about, as goes the South, so goes the nation, and yet we have folks like Rep. Cori Bush and State Rep. Angie Nixon, who are going on the record saying, free Palestine, we need a free Palestine, we need a ceasefire now, and reminding people that the ceasefire is now and the free Palestine is the goal.
Right.
So, Rep, can you speak to like being at the forefront of these fights and like standing on both sides of the lane?
Ooh, it hurts. It's hard. And like now I'm gonna tear up. It is exhausting. It's so exhausting to have to go into a place where not only do they not like you, but they don't want you to exist, right? And then sometimes to have to come home and to fight with your own people, and like, again, it's frustrating because they don't realize what's being done to them. But my North Star is like my babies. I have 5 of them, right? And so I think it's super important that, again, like, we have to be real. Like, I know Naila said, like, people want answers. They do want answers. But even more so, like, people don't just, if you don't have the answers, they just want the truth. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. They just want you to tell them, like, we're in a fucked up situation. I don't know how we're going to get out, but I just know if you throw down with me, like, we will figure this out. Mm-hmm. And so, like, that's what we have to do. And you were at lunch today just talking about, like, people are really tired of hearing, like, just vote. Mm-hmm. Like, what's next? Mm-hmm. And so, like, people are cool with you coming up to them and saying, you know what, like, voting ain't just gonna be the only answer. Mm-hmm. It does help in a sense, but it's like it helps lead to the next thing. But like, you just gotta be truthful with people. But it's tough to be here. But like, also, like, I don't really want to be here, so I really don't care, right? It's like, it is not my goal to be a lifelong elected official. I could care less. Mm-hmm. It is my goal to have transformative change for my people, and that is why we have to like really look to elect people like that in office, because at the end of the day, they gonna be on the right side of history at all times. Mm-hmm. Like they put me in a basement with rats, y'all, because I talk too much. And so it's like, but I don't care, because I have people that come up to me and say, you know what, like, you always tell the truth, you're so real, you're so down to earth, your hair don't even be done. You call me busted? But no, but like, they want that authenticity, right? And so it's tough, but it's also like, it's affirming to be here in a space with my people. And so like, but we have to continue to, again, go out to the other folks, right? And to reaffirm them and to educate them and to be in relation with them as well.
I just, real quick, just a super big shout out to Angie, the Florida legislature. The Florida legislature is a hateful place. And Angie, like, Angie's one of us.
Yeah.
Angie came to this through community organizing, has that in her core, and daily is like just hit with the most hostile white supremacist, like just, it's a hateful place. So I just like that we have somebody who's a representative who doesn't want to be a lifelong, right? This wasn't a career move for Angie. She felt the call to represent her folks. So you know,
Thank you.
we don't have champions like that, you know, the things, but she's one of one.
Yeah.
I want to ask Delaney for your perspective on like you work in. I want to just take a moment to shout out that we have so many incredible panelists, and that like we have 2 panelists who worked on presidential candidates as comms perspective experts on the left, and I'm curious for both of y'all. Across like your work as comms professionals in the political arena, but also beyond that, you work in digital media, you work in written word media. How has talk about that? Talk about that.
Oh man. Okay, 2 things. Working where I worked, my severance is up, so I can really talk. But working where I worked, you know, the chairperson is a Zionist. And so when October 7th happened, it was really interesting, sad, to watch the way that the media rallied around Zionism, and how passive messaging was getting to our folks, and how LeBron James on October 8th was retweeting CBS that was like, pray for Israel. And the way that sort of passive messaging hits our people hard. And something that I wrote down where you were talking, Rep. Nixon, was that we're fighting like a psychological war. And the big media conglomerates are people who are wielding this war against our folks. And so we have to be mindful about how we're creating experiences that can combat those forces in media. What are the experiences that are letting our folks taste and feel and love this new vision, this new world that we're trying to build? How do people get to grab a hold of it, and not just through a pamphlet, not just through a book club, but what does it look like to actually build something? What does it look like, I'm gonna say, to throw a party again, that makes people sign something about consent, and now they know at their next event they should probably talk about consent so that people can be safe? What does it look like to build a mobile crisis unit so that people know that medicine and healthcare shouldn't be $1 billion kajillion dollars, so that people can actually visualize the world that we're living in, or the world that we want to live in, and not allow media and media representation of politics to sway from the North Star that we're trying to get people to look to and follow. And that's a hard task when people are hit with media messaging all the time. When I look at representation, I worked in social impact. They only talked about representation of race and gender and sexuality, and those things are really amazing. But we need characters. We need media that's talking about being in a union. We need characters and writers and people that are talking about this new world, healthcare, free childcare. We need to build that for our people. And I know there's media, independent media, Hammer and Hope, Scalawag, The Forge, other places where people can start to consume some of that new media. So yeah, that's it. I don't want to talk too much about my old employer, but y'all should divest from those people where the teen moms are on, the shy, I know. But yeah, you should divest ASAP.
Working on national campaigns and many local campaigns taught me that the revolution and the new world we're building will not be built by the White House.
Hello.
And I just want to honor you, Rep. Nixon. Sorry, thinking about Nixon. Because there are so many candidates I've worked with, especially over the last 4 years, who I cannot tell you how many times I've begged them, please say free Palestine, please reject Zionist dollars, please be willing and bold enough to say that a two-state solution is not a solution.
Hello.
And almost every single candidate that I have worked with felt like they were unable to do that. And I use the word unable because the idea of able is also an ableist idea, right? This notion that some of us have the ability or the capacity to do some things while others of us do not. There is no candidate, no elected on the planet who cannot say free Palestine, who cannot reject Zionist dollars. So, especially on the presidential, and there's lots to be said about how it worked and lots to be said about, I guess, where value lives, but I felt the most useful when I was out in the streets with people who I knew had questions for us, who I knew had questions for these candidates who likely could not show up in the spaces that we were showing up in, and even if they did, would have no idea what to say. And after a little while, it got really frustrating to realize that we are the representatives of these ideas and ideals, but the candidates that we're speaking for don't actually believe in those ideals or those principles. And so, with all the candidates that I've worked with, the way I approach the work now is, if you are willing to get down and say free Palestine and say abolition and say systems development, right, then I am willing to work for you for free. You can have my expertise for free. And that's part of how I continue to be in community with folks in the electoral space, even though, and we'll talk about this later, I have a lot of questions about how the vote works. I have a lot of questions about how democracy works, but still I'm willing to be a part of whatever organizing apparatus makes it possible to change the conditions that we're living in. And like I said, if you down with it, I'll do it for free. So.
Okay, this brings us to the last leg of our panel, which is closings. Whoop. This brings us to the last leg of our panel, which is closings. So we'll start on your end, Delaney, with 2-minute closes. I'm so sorry, but time moves fast.
It does.
Oh my gosh. Y'all, to close. Join an organization, join DD, Dream Defenders, and go outside. Get in the field. Yeah. Really get in the field if you can.
Yes.
Please go. There's enough of us doing the typing. There's enough of us, doing all those things, dropping toolkits, praying to God somebody will open up the PDF and do something. There's enough. People have had enough. We've been inside, been on the computer, been looking, tip-tapping. We need people face-to-face. We need you to go to the basketball tournament. We need you to go to the food hall. We need you to go to the bus station. We need people to be a part of a community. Be a part of your community. Go to the grocery store. Go there. Be present, be grounded, be rooted where you're at. Hyper locally. That's where we need folks, and we need people to believe. And it's possible. That's what I'll say. The world that we're building is possible. If it wasn't possible, then we wouldn't even be able to imagine it. But we can, and we are. So, yeah, keep that in mind and fight the good fight. Thanks.
So plus, everything Delaney said. And I would also add that it's really important for us to remember that we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, and that we need to invite our people to now dream and have wild dreams, because they don't right now. All they are seeing is the nightmares that they're currently living in. But, again, it's going to take us going out, as Delaney said, going to them, right? Going into their communities, fish fries, cookouts, all the things. But invite them to dream, and then invite them to resist, and then invite them to flourish. Literally, that's on my wall in my bookstore. Dream, resist, flourish, which I stole the dream part from the Dream Defenders. What was it? Shall we dream? Wasn't it?
Can we dream together?
Dream? So But it's like, for real, like, can we dream? Like, we have to be in a place where it's like, oh my God, like, what if I could rest?
Hey.
What if I could only have to work one job, right? Like, why is that so radical? That should not be radical. That should be the norm. So invite people to dream it so that they can come in and fight and help us resist the oppression that we're currently living in so that we can, in fact, win and flourish. And that's what I would leave everyone with.
Beautiful.
Okay, so yeah, dreaming is so important. I mean that in all seriousness. I think to close is do not let cynicism, be skeptical, it's healthy. That's how we probably all got into this room, as being like people who are skeptical of all the shit that we see and hear. But yeah, do not give in. Do not give in right now to cynicism. We are a bunch of people who don't quite have the full roadmap of where to go, but we're all trying in earnest to get there, and we're trying to get there together. So, like, have faith in people. We're not always going to get it right. We're not always going to have the right answer, but we're trying. Have faith in people, have faith in each other that we are going to figure this out. And it's going to take lots of, it's going to take work, but stay the course. And then in that vein, Dream Defenders again, we talked about the Freedom Papers. We're going to be ratifying our Black New Deal at our annual convening in about 3 weeks. So, real soon we're going to have something new for y'all to look at. Our new attempt at another roadmap to how we try something to make this country and the material conditions that we're living in a reality, something that we can fight for and like at the parties. Don't be weird.
Do not be weird.
But give the little. There's stuff on your seats. Pass that out at a party. That's cute. Have a couple one-on-ones with people. Ask what they care about. But so look out for it. Join Dream Defenders. We're a national organization now. It's been 2 years. We started off in Florida, and we made the call that we needed a Black left intergenerational organization with a membership base in this country somewhere. So, have faith in each other. Keep working towards it. And join us.
We can win.
Yes.
But we have to get real specific about what winning means. And we have to get real specific about what power is. And we have a lot of people in our communities or people outside of our communities who are coming into our communities telling us that power is this very specific thing, that everybody should run for office, that everybody should run for national office, and that everybody should run for the White House, get in there and make some change. We cannot be attached to a nation state. We have to be attached to people. And there is no world where we can win if our idea of winning comes down to whether or not we vote for the right hero, the right heroine to go in there and do it for us. Our vote is an offer. It is not an obligation. It is not something that is deserved or not deserved. Voting naturally is an apparatus of the state. And what we do with all of those apparatuses is we deconstruct them, right? We make it clear that who we are lives outside of the framework that we've been offered. So I want to end with this quote by Saul Williams, who says, "We are not required to follow protocol. If you are dreaming of another world, you have the power to help enact it. Fear will always deter and distract you from your potential to overthrow it. Cowing to your fears is an invitation." And I'll say one last thing before we move on. I think it's super important that we remember that every 4 years, and even sooner than that, every 2 years, every year, our candidates campaign on fear. Not you, Rep. You a G. But they campaign on fear, right? And then they govern on fear. And we're sold fear every year, every 4 years. At some point, we have to be able to move beyond fear and move into hopefulness. So Project 2024 is real violent and really scary, but we are stronger and more powerful than anything that Trump can come up with. Yes. And our composition is so much stronger. So yeah, as long as we tap into precision and identify what it means to win, we finna win.
Period, Pooh.
Thank you all so much. Before you leave, I want to invite you, all of us at Dream Defenders, we wear shields, our badges, our logo is a shield, and we have necklaces and pins that say power, transformation, and miracles, because that's foundational to how we're moving through the space. So I want to offer you power, transformation, and miracles. Step into power, join Dream Defenders. Become transformative, join the Black New Deal Coalition. And believe in miracles, go outside. Go outside. Thank you so much.
Thank you.